Hi everybody, Giselle Grenier here from artplace.ca. In today's video tutorial we're going to be doing color mixing and painting feathers of a heron, and I'm not going to show you yet, but this is basically the photo we're going to be working from. It's not a lesson on how to paint the bird, it's basically color mixing and how to match colors from a photograph. And this is all leading up to a wildlife slash landscape painting that I'm going to be teaching. So I thought I would throw this in as a bonus lesson. So that's what we're working with. So just to save some time, I've already prepared some stuff ahead of time. I'm going to be using the Royal Essentials canvas paper, and it comes in a pad. Okay, so basically I prepared an entire pad at once, took all the sheets out. And what I did is using the DecoArt Americana Premium white gesso with the Royal Artist brush, and I applied a coat of gesso over everything, and then let it dry, give it a light sanding, applied another coat, and then another light sanding. And I spent probably about a half an hour to an hour for each layer. So it took, I guess, without including drying time, took 2 hours to prepare a whack load of sheets. And I have a video on that, so you can take a look at that if you want. And then I used the lineless grid system to create my sketch and put it onto my canvas paper. No graphite paper required or anything, just as long as you have some tracing paper. And I use the lineless grid system to enlarge. So I use the big 11 by 14, the tabloid size paper master with the grid to create a proportioned sketch that was larger. And that's on there. And then from there, to pick your colors, so, you got a glare there from the light. So to pick the colors, ideally what you do when you look at the photograph, I'm not worried about the foliage, just the bird, is you look at what the local color is. So you find the first color there, and then we do some analysis. So I've already prepared a palette, but I'm going to show you how I chose the colors. So we start off first with the photograph. You can get, look, herons are like all over the place, and there's different colors upon different lighting. And this one here, I find it very hard to believe that's an actual, what I think it is that the person took the heron and then superimposed it onto something else, because it just doesn't look like it looks like it's floating on top of that. But I want to show you the color in here versus this one here. Oh, and also this I painted many years ago. So this is one I did in oil. So again, I put a little bit of purples in that one. So looking at the color first, we'll start with the blue. And we obviously know that there's blue. Okay, well, I have 2 blues on my palette. I've got, and I'm using the DecoArt Americana Premium tube acrylics for this lesson. So I have 2 blues. I have a phthalo blue and an ultramarine blue. That's the only blues I have to choose from. Okay, so you look, well, I see blue, take the blues. Then look, okay, the blues can only go one way. Blues can either lean towards green or can lean towards violet. So take a look. There's blue above the beak. There's a blue black on his crown here in the wing, a little bit underneath, and then all in here. So the feathers here, does it lean towards blue or does it lean towards violet? Honestly, I think it leans a little bit more towards the violet, and it could be because of the lighting. I'm not sure. So if it leans a bit towards the violet, we know that it's definitely ultramarine blue, because ultramarine blue leans towards violet. But the blue that's up here is a bit warmer, and then as it comes down, it becomes a little bit grayer and a little bit cooler. So thinking, well, if it's cooler, there's definitely no red in it. There's red and violet. So right about in here, and including the crown here, and up here leans a bit more towards the green, so phthalo blue. Phthalo blue is the blue that leans towards the green. So on my palette, phthalo blue and ultramarine blue. Then we move on to his beak. Well, there's some yellow in there. What yellows do I have? Hansa Yellow Light and Yellow Oxide. I have Hansa Yellow Medium, Hansa Yellow Light, Yellow Oxide, and you can even, and Derelid Yellow. So, actually I better pull that one out too, just so everything makes sense. So in this, I'm looking here. Well, yeah, this part of the beak is more of a yellow orange. So I would naturally think, oh, might be this one. And this actually is, that is pretty close. That is pretty close. But it's a bit dull. This is a bit dull. So definitely this is too intense. So I'm going to put that away. I'm thinking, well, I do see some bright yellow here, and also the bright yellow in the eyes. So I'm thinking, oh, definitely for sure Hansa Yellow Light, because you need something bright, and you're not going to get brightness out of yellow oxide. So definitely Hansa Yellow Light, which I put right here. And then I'm looking here where it's a bit dull. Well, this is too dull. The Derelid Yellow is too intense. The Hansa Yellow Light is too light. So I could then take the Hansa Yellow Light, deepen it a little bit with the yellow oxide to get the deep yellow right in here. So yellow oxide goes right here. What's next? Okay, so right in here, the blue leans a little bit, I think a little bit towards violet. It's, you know, I'm kind of humming and hawing about that. It looks a little bit violet. Well, I'm going to take a chance to just think, instead of adding quinacridone violet, I'm going to put Pyrrole Red over here, just in case. I'm not sure, but I'm going to put it there just in case, because I know that in the actual sketch, we need to ground the heron, so I'm going to smush in some foliage here, which I'm going to dull the green down with Pyrrole Red. Okay, so I put that out here to smush that down, but I'm not sure. We'll have, when we get to matching the colors, we'll have to take a look at this again. And then, knowing that phthalo blue is really, really intense, to gray it down, you can either add burnt sienna, but I prefer you adding the complement, so vermilion hue. So that'll gray things down with the addition of white. So where we have vermilion and titanium white. So you look at the local color, and then you see where does it shift. So blue can only shift towards green or violet. Yellow can only shift towards orange or green. Red can only shift towards violet and orange. Green can only shift towards yellow and blue, which would be the phthalo green blue shade or phthalo green yellow shade. So, you know, there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do there. And because it's like super hot in here, I put a bit of extender underneath the paint puddles. I have another video to show you how to do that, so I won't cover that off. And then with the brushes, I was going to do this on an easel, but it's honestly, I'm kind of feeling lazy right now, so I'm just going to sit down because it's just way too hot. So I'm using the Supreme Royal Line Nickel Supreme brushes, 8, 6, 4, and 2 flat, and then I also have a Majestic for detail, a number 2 bright and a number 2 round. I may pull out brushes. If I do, then I will call them out as I go. Well, first thing we need to, let's basically underpaint the bird. Well, to underpaint the bird, that brush is too big. Let's get this. The bigger the brush, the better, if at all possible. So I'm looking here, and we'll just start right away with the blue. So I'm going to blot my brush. So with this blue here, we're going to do our color matching right on here. And also keep in mind that if you don't have the exact same pigments that I do, use what you have and get something close. We're not looking to paint this eventually as realistic like a photograph. For me, if you want to paint, you want to make your painting look like a photograph, then just frame the photograph. You know, we can basically take nature and make it prettier. Well, I'm not going to load phthalo blue on my brush because you never use that full strength. I'm going to just grab some titanium white, and I'm going to touch with a little bit of phthalo blue. And if you want, you can also use a bunch of scrap paper and you can put it towards your photo. That's too intense. It doesn't matter where I go, that's just too intense. So if it's too intense, you can dull it down, but I'm also looking that it's too cool of a blue. So let's match all this down here. Well, if it's too cool of a blue, let's add a little bit of ultramarine blue to warm it up a bit. And that's still not quite gray enough. Well, the opposite to blue is orange. Need to gray that down a little bit. And I'm also going to add a little bit more ultramarine blue and a little bit more phthalo blue to that. A speck more orange. Ah, we're getting there. There we go, right there. We're getting there. We're getting there. And don't forget, acrylics dry darker, so keep that in mind. A bit more orange. There we go. Look at all those different. This is paint you don't have to buy. You can mix up the colors yourself. There we are. I'll take a little bit more white. Lighten the value. There we are. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm liking this one for this one as well. So if we just take this, and I'm just going to put that in. We're going to map out. I'm going to map that out. You need dark to show light because you can't paint white on this and it'll look flat. So let's just underpaint with that. Then I'll take a little bit more yellow. That's better. And I'm underpainting using the bristle brushes because they're the workhorse brushes. You don't do your detail work with this. And I'm just painting in the direction that the feathers would naturally go. Very thin, choppy layer. I'm going to turn this a bit. We'll be able to finagle the details when it actually comes to painting the heron, but right now just showing you. You just want to cover everything. Okay. And we'll just push that down. We're going to put just foliage over that. We're not painting. This is not a lesson on painting foliage. Okay. Well, let's rinse that brush. And now I'm going to look at doing the white. And so in order to show the white, I could still underpaint with this blue. And this white is pretty bright, but if I want to create some dimension here, I don't want to put just white. I'm going to take some of that mixture, same mixture here. And the lines here from the grid sketch, they're too dark, but this is just so you can see the actual sketch. And this is what I did in the video. And you're just going to put that in there. And so I don't mess up the yellows here to make green. I'm going to let that dry for a sec. Had to stop there for a second. We have a visitor that's laying on the floor. Okay, so that's dry. Oh, the kids are out. I'm going to go to a small little brush. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit of that blue. And I'm just going to go right in here. It'll just help the white pop. So when you're underpainting, always paint in the direction. Always paint in the direction that the feathers grow. Just helps make the job so much easier. Okay, so I've got the colors in there. Just put a bit more here. And now that this dark thing, this is in the photo. To me, it looks black. I don't think it is black. So I'm going to take the phthalo blue, and I can try getting a chromatic black with burnt sienna. I'm going to show you, give you this swatch card. I think it's more on the blue side. That looks pretty close to me, but just to show you what the initial color is, there we go. So it is more on the blue side. Get rid of that white. And this we can pretty well paint. It's a bit transparent, but that's okay. This isn't going to be the only layer. Goes right to the back. There's a bit of blue here too. I'm just going to darken. There's a little bit of blue here as well. And then here. I don't know if you guys can hear Mia panting. We're under a thunderstorm watch. She likes being with me when she can feel it in the system. And then right under here, I see the dark as well. So I'm just going to put those lines like this. This will also add shadow. Under there, and then letting it dry, and then you can come back and add another. Phthalo blue is transparent, so that's why you may want to add. You can also add, you can add a dab of black to that as well. But make sure this is dry, otherwise you'll lift the paint up. Now where I also see dark, now this is, I don't think this is going to be a fine enough brush. The around the eye. And hopefully, now there's, you'll have the photograph, but there's a black circle around the eye and then the pupil. So the black around the eye, it's safe to make it bigger because you're going to be painting white on top. And I'm just going to dot pupil, that, let that dry, and then we'll come in with the yellow, because we put yellow in right now while it's wet, it's going to make green. And speaking of the yellow, actually while that's dry, let's ground the bird. So I'm going to take my large number 8. Now this is, we're just going to freestyle this part here. I'm going to take some yellow ochre, or yellow oxide, and speck of Hansa yellow light, and a little bit of phthalo blue. Let's neutralize that a bit with the naphthol red. Not naphthol red. Pure red. I'm sorry, because I used to say naphthol red light with the because of the traditions. We have a nice neutral green. And we'll just cut into there. And now we'll just go into a little bit more phthalo blue. More yellow oxide. This will be a little bit darker. Okay, so we have something in there. to get that ground started. So this is we're building our foundation now. Okay, so that's dry now. I'm going to go back to my little brush. And I'm going to take yellow oxide and Hansa yellow light, more of the Hansa yellow light. I'm going to take a speck of white. That'll make it opaque. And I will tell you right now, I hate doing this being this small. Could have painted the yellow all the way around, then top it off with the blue, which is what I'm going to do. Don't forget, this is just the foundation. And while we're here, I'm going to take a little bit more yellow oxide, go right into that brighter yellow, and let's get the beak in. That goes right to the end. And the color in the brush for the legs. It's more yellow oxide. Could even just use more raw sienna. And it's dark at the bottom, so to darken yellow oxide, you could darken it with burnt sienna. A bit more than that. I think I have a bit of blue in my brush now. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Looks kind of funny, doesn't it? They always look funny when they're in the foundation stage. It always looks funny. And where are we now? Okay. So now that we've got our foundation in, and now it's to paint the feathers, and I'll work with the white. So working details, it's always nice working just with the synthetics. You can use natural brushes if you want as well. And I can go right into some titanium white. I'm going to put a little bit of extender using the DecoArt Americana Premium Extender. It's like a gel. It just helps the paint flow a little bit. It also makes things transparent, so don't forget that while you're painting. Titanium white. And I'm just painting lines. There's no individual feather strokes here because the bird the feathers are so fine. Now what's also going to be hard to judge is that we're just doing this on white because this is just a painting study. So the white, I'm going to make this a little bit darker because it's likely going to disappear with the palette paper. I mean the canvas paper. The graphite's also showing through again. When you're transferring your line drawing, don't make it that dark. And I'm just going to, again, thinking if I'm petting the heron, short choppy strokes, and that creates all that lovely texture. And the crown as well. Not gonna worry about it, the graphite showing through right now. Right. And while I'm here, I'm going to take some of that white, and I'm looking here, and I'm seeing in the back, because I still have extender in the brush and some in the paint, I can come in now and just do short choppy strokes for the feathers, and you can see that they're not white. With a heron, the one nice thing is that they're, other than the larger feathers on the bottom, it's not really individual. In this photograph, it's not really individual little feather strokes. It's or individual feathers. It's a series of short choppy strokes. See how we're building that up? And just going to continue on here. Long. You see, because of the extender makes this white transparent, it allows the blue to show through. If you didn't have extender, you can use a little bit of water, but you got to be careful with that so you don't weaken the pigment. And as well, you could always color mix a lighter blue if you needed to. And just by moving around, and this is our first layer of detail, you just move around and you put your colors in where you see them. Now there's long feathers. If you look at your photographs, there's long feathers here. So you can paint more green in the back, but painting white for me right here is going to be useless because of the canvas paper is going to take away from that. And there's a little bit of white around here. Just going to softly just touch that in. And I made this stroke a little too big, this black stroke, so I can put a little bit of white and cut into it to reshape it. The beautiful thing with acrylics, if you put too much white or too much black or too much purple, too much green, you can always cover it up and fix that. Okay, that's dry, so I'm going to come in now with more just pure white. Another layer. And it's not quite dry yet. Again, just a series of short choppy strokes, but I'm not covering everything. I want to have some of that blue showing through. So we come down here with the larger feathers. I can take my white and the same mixture that I had before, which is now dried. So I just take a little bit of phthalo blue and a speck of ultramarine blue. And these larger feathers, again, you know, you can basically you can put on the line drawing if you want, but it's a series of V shapes. And I'm leaving some of the dark showing in between for the shadows, for the dark parts of the feathers. And it gets grayer as we go up. I'm going to take a little bit of orange into the blue. Right here. And that goes right up to here. Touch, push, lift, touch, push, lift, touch, push, lift as we work it down. And while I'm here, I'm going to take some of that color and just going to put a bit too much white there, so I'm going to darken the area, then I can come back with the white. And in here as well, it's more phthalo blue with white. Those long. So this one here, I'm going to make this blue, not white. In the photograph, these are white. I'm going to bring this dark part up just a little bit, because then I can take the white and overlap it, so it looks more natural. Okay. So that's basically it, and then you just keep going. By overlapping. And again, I'm not going to, this is the lesson about how to paint a heron. That'll be in the actual wildlife piece. But because this takes a long time. This takes a long time, but you can get the gist of it by matching up the colors. You see I'm painting and there's really nothing coming off the brush because there's paint coming off the brush, it's just the same color. So I gotta change the value. And when you're painting animals, the more layers the better, just as long as you don't cover up all the darks. I'm gonna turn my piece. I'm gonna turn the photograph. And I need to make this much, much lighter. Right here's a big batch of sun. It's a little bit darker in there. There's a shadow there. The shadows are from the branches, so if you're not putting branches in, just paint what you see, eliminating the highlights. I'm not putting any of the branches there, so I'm not going to put the highlights the way that they are in the photograph. All this stuff in here. I'm going to go to the dark mixture. A speck of water. And then where the feathers are darker, come in with a little bit more blue. And phthalo blue, ultramarine blue. And knock down the vibrancy a little bit. Okay. So yeah, as we're building it up, it starts to take form and it starts to take shape. Just keep looking at the colors. So you look at the color, you make your stroke, you analyze it. Is it dark enough or light enough? Is it too intense or not intense enough? Is the value correct? So you ask yourself all these questions. And in the actual painting that we're going to be creating, this is the photograph we're going to be using of the heron because of all the extra strokes that we're going to get in there. So this is more of a study on just practicing your strokes. I'm going to intensify these a little bit more. Is to practice your strokes and the color, getting that color right. And the highlights in between, they're not really highlights, it's just a lighter part of the feathers. So where the feathers are light, it's more of a white. As long as your brush stays damp, your paints are going to remain transparent or semi-transparent, which is what you want for this because we want layers upon layers upon layers. So you can see I lost count. I think it's like I'm on my 5th layer, I think here. Is it my 5th? He's just getting multiple colors. And here I'm going to take a little bit of just phthalo or ultramarine blue. I see the blue there, it's a little bit warmer. So we automatically think, okay, ultramarine blue. A little patch here. And this is a very transparent layer. This is glazing. So the strokes that I put underneath are going to show through. And remember, don't paint to copy the photograph to make it look like a photograph. Like, I love all the details that are coming in here, just from the standpoint that it's not flat. I'm going to take a little bit of extender. I'm just going to glaze a little bit of that ultramarine blue right on top of here. Glazing, so remember, glazing, your strokes will show through. You're not going to lose them. Just adds a little bit of extra color. And while that's drying, I'm going to go back to my phthalo blue, speck of ultramarine blue, and some white. A little bit of orange to gray it down. Let's get some extender in there. That's way too, that I know for a fact that's way too dark. Oh, psycho dog's outside. Mia should start barking any minute now. And now and then you just layer down the next sets of feathers. So what I like to do is the feathers that I'm painting, I start at the edge and I work my way up, because these feathers are on top of these feathers are on top of these feathers are on top of these feathers. So what I like to do is paint what's tucked underneath. So there's this one that I'm paint first, then the next one will go on top, then the next one will go on top, so it layers. And I'm not going to stop filming when that dog stops. So I'm just going to keep painting, because right now the brush is at a perfect consistency for the paint. I'm going to deepen that with a little bit more blue right in here. It's a very detailed. That is way too intense. Knock that back with some orange. I may have to let that dry. And I'm not going to paint every single individual feather. It's the essence of what I'm painting. But I do need to right here just darken this part up a little bit. Go. Oh, and I'm looking at the window and it's starting to rain. So as soon as I hear the first big boom of thunder, I'll have to stop. I need to gray that down a little bit more. And when this dries, what I'm going to show you about graying down the blue, whether you use the orange or whether you use the burnt sienna. The more layers you add, the more natural it's going to look. Let's taper this off here. Forgot to paint that one in. And then everything above that now is just the individual white, but I'm going to paint the neck again, one more layer. Now the unfortunate thing is with the photograph, this is pure white. I don't like the pure white. There's reflective light in there. So I'm going to leave it with a bit more of a blue tinge. You can even make it a little yellow. Now, the one thing with the eye, there isn't a white little highlight, so we're lucky. That would be super tiny. So definitely, if this had a greenish background, this would really stand out. Look how nice he's looking. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. Now I want to do a little bit of an experiment. You know what I'm saying? We're taking the phthalo blue. This is going to have to dry because there's extender. The phthalo blue, knocking it back with orange versus the burnt sienna. So let's try that. If we take our phthalo blue and create two piles. I'm going to knock it back with a good chunk of orange. We'll put that there. And then we'll add white so you can see. Okay, so blue and the orange are opposites on the color wheel. Now versus blue and the burnt sienna. And the phthalo blue with burnt sienna creates some type of chromatic black. I'm going to put more burnt sienna in there. Oops, not quite mixed. And this test, it'll look different every single time I do it because you'll never get the same ratio of the, the burnt sienna to the blue versus the burnt sienna to, or the orange to the phthalo blue. But look at the difference. So with the phthalo blue and the orange still retains a bit of blue, but then when you do the phthalo blue with the burnt sienna, you get more of a gray. Now the mixtures that you use is completely up to you. It's easier though if you just use burnt sienna to neutralize everything. I'll be completely honest, it is easier. So while that dries, let's go over here. And I'm going to get the round brush. Let's see what kind of damage we can do. Well, the beak, I'm going to use yellow oxide because I do see that it is dark here. Again, the paints are semi-transparent, semi-opaque, semi-transparent, so you're going to see the underlying color. So it's nice when you're starting off your colors with something dark already. Then in the dirty brush, just go right into the Hansa yellow light. Go right in the front here. It's hard to tell. And take white into that mixture. Right there. And I'm looking here and I didn't extend the blue far enough, so I'm just going to take some of this blue right in the dirty brush. I didn't extend it long enough. On the dirty brush, I'm going to load white. Right up here, it's a lighter white. And I'm just going to put some little choppy strokes in here. Gray that down a little bit. And you may be wondering why I'm not doing extreme close-ups to this, because when you do extreme close-ups, you're focusing only on one area. I want you to take a look at the entire piece. The entire piece. I'm going to go into white and speck of yellow right in here. And let's put some of that here. I need a bit more white on the brush. As long as your brush stays damp, your colors are going to remain transparent. Okay. And the color underneath is white. Right there and there. Oh, Mia's dreaming. She's whimpering. Okay, see this building up? Take what's, this is a little bit tacky. So right now what I'm doing is I'm running the risk of pulling the paint up, which would be a good opportunity to show you what to do. So what I'm doing now is I'm just brushing on some of that light color. I think I have to switch to the shader brush. And I'm just putting the lighter parts okay, I'm starting to hear thunder. And let's see, where are we now? Oh, now all this is really fine. This needs a little bit of water. Really, really fine. Don't put it on pure. Make sure your brush is damp, so the colors still remain transparent. You know what I would like to use? I'm going to try my liner brush. I suck. I'm not going to lie to you. I suck at using a liner brush. It's the control. I just don't have it. It's shaky hands, arthritis. So I'm just adding water to that. And coming up here. And with the water, this is all going to be transparent. There's a bright one there. There's a lot here. Okay. And overlap now. And the feathers, you're going to do these feathers in the direction that they grow. That's a gimme. And I'm not painting the individual feathers underneath. That's not happening. You don't need to. Now there is a larger feather here. If I just take a little bit of that dark blue. Oh, here's the rain. I'm just gonna stroke in a few dark pieces here, so you can do that with the liner brush. And I'm painting while the storm is starting, running the risk of we tend to get power failures during these really bad type of storms that we're gonna be experiencing. But I'm on such a groove that I'm so excited. I'm painting with my script liner brush. Such little things amuse me. Okay, I just need to make a bit more paint. I'll do that with the burnt sienna this time. Getting the darks in here. Oh, I think we're getting some hail. I think we might be getting some hail. Okay. I'm going to paint this last bit here. This comes around, comes around, comes around. I'm going to pick up the white right on the brush. And I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to turn all the electronics off. because yeah, it's looking pretty bad out there. I'll have to get a picture for you. All right, so let this dry. I'll come back when the thunderstorm is over and I'll see you then. Okay, we have a bit of a break from the rain. I want to quickly try to see if I can finish this. I pulled out a filbert brush, and I noticed as I was looking at the photograph, I missed some feathers here, which is not really a big deal. But filbert brushes are really nice for painting, getting those long flowing strokes. Oh darn, there's the thunder again. The long flowing strokes that are rounded at the edge. Okay. There's a branch here, so I'm really not sure what I'm looking at. Do I have any white here that's wet? Nope. Dirty brush. Yeah, the filbert brush is one of my favorite brushes for feathers. I'm just going to take some white, and basically you can see that I'm going to take some of this gray mix. You can see that it's just the same type of strokes over and over and over again. Just pick up a little bit on the tip. The feathers are really fine here. And I'm going to take that. Oh, I just did something which I preached not to do. There's water on the ferrule. Make sure that you blot that up. Otherwise, you run the risk of the water going right down into the bristles. And if there was a background on here, you could feather. You can feather that out. And the back needs to be even whiter. So we'll put in our next layer. And the filbert brush is like the shader, the square brush with the chisel edge is rounded. Love that. And this is a little bit more bluer instead of grayer. You don't have to worry about painting individual strokes. This already gives you the impression that there are feathers on here. Love that. All right. And I'm going to take white with a speck of Hansa Yellow Light, a little bit of orange. Then make a bit of a sunshine color. You're just basically tinting the white so it's not pure white. Get rid of that. Oh, look what happened. Look what happened. These land nickel brushes, these long ones here, are based on wood. So how do you do to fix that? Get some E6000 or some Gorilla Glue and just glue it right back. I will have to tell Royal Brush that. Just putting a little bit of that sunshine color right in here so it's not, I don't want to use pure white on here. So I'm just using some of that sunshine color a little bit reflective. And pure white on the dirty brush for the crown. The problem with doing that is that the colors are so similar. I'm going to go back to that sunshine color. The colors are so similar because of the background being canvas paper. You don't really see. So you may want to actually put a background in here. Just so you're not painting white on white. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Dry brushing a bit more white. You gotta be careful when you're dry brushing as well when using the extender, because that takes a long time to dry. Okay, I'm gonna hold that brush on the side because I'm gonna have to send that. These smaller brushes, they look like, I think they're an acrylic handle. Yeah, that bothers me. Okay, move on. Where to? Oh, let's put, again, now all we're doing is just basically we're just refining what we were doing. So I'm going to deepen this a bit more. And that ring is a little large. And you could just come back a little bit of white in the middle just to blend that out. You're just cutting into the shape. And I take a little bit of yellow oxide in the dirty brush, a little bit of white, just dry brush over here, making sure the brush is damp so that way the layer shows through. Rinse the brush, a little bit more white. There's a light part right here. So you can see just by starting out with your darks, it makes it so much easier to add your lights. So I'm going to take my script brush again, and this is more white with whatever dirty color was on the palette. And let's see, so we've got some, and believe it or not, we're almost done. Just remember that the more layers of detail, especially with feathers and fur, the more realistic it's going to look. We don't want to look like a photograph, but we do want to give the impression of feathers. You can see, instead of painting every single individual feather in here, you can definitely tell that this is a bird. Just going to put some lines here, accentuate these are the big tail feathers. Now, unless you're doing a close-up, then yeah, you definitely would have to put individual details for the feathers. But all I'm doing is just adding in highlights. It's hard to explain. All I'm doing is I'm putting highlights and where the what's that called, the barb, the spine part of the feather, in white, and that's actually creating the shapes of the feathers. My mouth seems to be rented today. I'm just looking at the window, waiting for the next batch of rain to come. Just make sure that your brush is always damp. Because when your paint is damp, that's going to ensure that the layer underneath is going to show through. That stroke is a little bit thick. Well, we'll see what happens. And up here, I'm going to turn this a bit more white. And the water that I'm actually dipping my brush in is dirty water. That helps create this, say, mud. And you can also just practice some strokes right on your palette, so you make sure you have the right amount of paint. Touch, push, lift, touch, push, lift. Super fine up here. And here, if there was the green, you could extend some of these feathers right out into the background. Love, love, love that. And put the individual ones there, just putting a little bit more of the white. And now there's some really bright feathers right here. Again, not copying the photo. You see, I'm just layering and layering and layering. And if you happen to put in too much light, just come back in with a little bit more dark. You just load a little bit more of the blue. You can come in and put some blue in there. Let's see, right in here. Not quite dark enough. There we go. Easy, easy peasy if you just put in too much light. Then you can come back in and put more dark in. There you go. So I hope that this gives you an idea of what you can do without having to paint individual little details in your painting. Like, you don't have to do that. And this just shows you that you can still get something pretty realistic without all those details. I'm just going to finish up the eye, and I may lay in another color into the ground, and that'll finish the study. So primarily you saw that we focused primarily on the matching of the colors, which is very important. And I'm going to take, actually let me do the ground, then I'm going to take the yellow, put it back in the eye, then we'll call this finished. That's all dry. So let's take something a little bit brighter now. Let's take some phthalo blue, Hansa yellow light, and that's like really, really, really strong. Just put a little bit of highlight around there. You can also just hit with some yellow. The yellow is transparent, so you'll be able to keep everything that's there. Okay. Oh, forgot to do something. What am I missing? There it is. I forgot to add back. I need just any dark. Forgot to add the layer back in here. There's also a dark patch. Now you gotta be careful too in adding very specific darks. You don't want to make it look spotty. I forgot this part. While I'm here, might as well do that. And I'm going to dot right into pure Hansa Yellow Light. And I can go over, I can even cover up the pupil, it won't matter. And then I can come in with the dark and just dot that back in because phthalo blue is so strong. There we go. And I think I'm going to call this study finished. Like I said, it takes, and I wasn't intending on showing you how to paint the heron, the whole thing. I wasn't intending, but I ended up doing it anyways. But it was more to focus on matching all the colors that you'd be using. Okay, so the takeaway tips is look at your local color in the photograph, and then from there the color only goes one way. Based on the color wheel, put that out and create swatch cards. You'll never go wrong with creating swatch cards. They'll help you tremendously. And don't forget to use the grid when you're creating your line drawing. That way you can proportion it to the size you want. Just narrowing down that shape there. There we go. Voila, so we're finished. Okay, so you got some experimenting to do, some practicing. Again, use the grid. You want to get the main shapes. You do not need, absolutely do not need to transfer every single line of the feathers. You can see how easy it is just to use short choppy strokes, multiple layers of color to create the texture of feathers. You don't need to put in individual feathers. It's not necessary. So that's it. So I hope that you enjoyed this lesson. And with this study, I mean, if you want to put a background in here, that's fine. You can do that in the beginning. You can, you know what? I found something else that I missed. You can, I'll just go do it while I'm talking. And then you can put it into your journal. There's a line here. Where did it go? It's the upper part of the beak. I can't believe I missed that. Right under the eye. So where was I? Oh yes, you can put it into a journal, but if you're going to put it into a journal with multiple pages, you might want to give it a coat of matte varnish so it doesn't stick. But there you go. Don't forget to date and sign all your studies. That way you see your progression as you go along. And this is the last study that we'll be doing in preparation for the heron at the waterfall painting. And so give this a try. Do multiple studies. Try different colors, especially if you're not using single pigment colors like I am. Experiment with your colors. And the other thing is just to avoid painting individual feathers. Okay, use the strokes and use the values to create the impression of the strokes and give that a shot. Alrighty, I'm going to clean up now, and it looks like the rain is starting up again. So until I see you in the next video, stay inspired.